If you're settling in for the evening with a quiet single malt whisky tonight, chances are it's racked up a lot of food miles and comes from Scotland or Ireland. When you think of the spirits distilled in this country, you probably think of rum, the colonial currency. But there's a maturing whisky trade in Australia, and much of it's coming from Tasmania. There's 6 established distilleries and a 7th isn't far away. It's now at the point where some connoisseurs are calling Tasmania Whisky Island. From there, Martin Cudahy reports.
In the early 1800s, Tasmania was home to 16 distilleries and produced some of the finest whisky in the colony, until, one by one, they were outlawed and shut down. Now, nearly 200 years on, there's a spiritual revival.
We could become the Scotland of the Southern Hemisphere, and I think we're already, making steps in that direction.
One of the spearheads of the revival is NANT Distillery. It's tucked away in Tasmania's Central Highlands, a region renowned for its Lakes District, its frosty winters and its Scottish heritage. Millions have been spent turning the estate's historic flour mill into a single malt distillery.
We would like to be known as producing absolutely world-class whisky, and we're very boutique at that.
NANT bottled its first release earlier this month. At more than $100 a bottle, it's not cheap. But then again, that's not the idea.
We finished them in a 100-litre barrel, so it's a 2-year-old at the moment.
NANT has the only commercially used water-powered mill in the country. The Highlands have given the emerging industry a big boost. Cold, clear water, good quality barley and the perfect temperature for barrel maturation.
They seem to produce a depth of character that I believe makes us comparable, or I'm going to go out on a limb and say superior to some of the whiskies that are produced in Scotland.
There's everything here that we need to make very good quality whisky.
No worries.
We're down to about...
An hour's drive south, the distillers at Sullivan's Cove near Hobart don't like to rush. The secret for success here is adding a good dose of time. Some whiskies will spend as long as 15 years maturing. Sullivan's Cove has been voted the world's best other whisky. That's everywhere except Scotland and Ireland. It's one reason why Patrick Maguire is aiming his drop at international markets.
I think if we're going to have an industry, we need more distilleries. So I would like to see, a couple of dozen distilleries in Tasmania.
The man widely considered to be the godfather of Tasmanian whisky is Bill Lark. He takes a hands-on approach and uses peat from a bog that lies smack in the middle of Tasmania to create Lark whisky. Peat adds a distinctly smoky flavour to the drink and another layer of complexity.
When other people around the world taste Australian whiskies, when they taste Tasmanian whiskies, they ask the question, what is it that makes your whisky so special? Well, you've only got to come to a place like this and you'll soon realise why our whisky is so special.
14 years ago, he opened the first distillery in Tasmania since 1839. The first legal one anyway. It wasn't easy though. He had to overcome a colonial law banning the production of spirits.
Luckily for us, we had a couple of very friendly politicians in Duncan Kerr and Barry Jones in Canberra that saw the potential of the industry in Australia and very quickly changed the Distillation Act of 1901.
These days it's very much a family business, with Bill taking a step back to allow his daughter, Christy Lark, to take over as head distiller. He hasn't retired though, and the expertise that's been built up now sees him consulting at distilleries across Australia and in the country that's given its name to a drink.
It's really nice to go back to Scotland and be able to offer something in return for the help that they gave us. And what I've found is, rather than poo-pooing us silly colonials for having a go at making whisky, they're relishing this relationship that's building between Scotland and Tasmania.
Our industry is only 16 years of age, theirs is 400, and we're catching up very, very rapidly with the quality of the whiskies that we produce.
Tim Duckett is a self-described whisky tragic and part of a group called the Tasmanian Whisky Appreciation Society. With 6 distilleries on his doorstep, he reckons there are at least half a dozen good reasons to have a drink.
We're a group of people that had a common interest, if you like, and whisky for us is a catalyst that brings us together.
With more distilleries in the planning phase, including one that will make bourbon, there's one question that remains, and it could have the Scots looking over their shoulder.
How long do you think before Tasmania produces the best whisky in the world?
I actually don't think it'll be very long at all, because I don't think it'll be long before one of the distilleries here in Tasmania produces a whisky. I mean, just have a look at that richness of colour. That is just sensational.